365 Sports. I want to bring this up because I saw this yesterday in the chat room. There was a question from Connor Johnson. He's an Oregon State fan who we got to know during all of the back and forth, especially once USC and UCLA bolted for the Big Ten. And he was in there with us a lot. He didn't like, some of what was truth serum and facts that we reported. It wasn't that. He was frustrated because Oregon State, Washington State appeared to be left out along with others, and now we know the end result. But he was asking about a report about Oregon State and Washington State. And I had really not seen this but heard about it. You guys were talking about it a little bit yesterday. So I contacted somebody within the Big 12 office. Garrett, my question was, are there any imminent or future plans for Big 12 expansion involving Oregon State or Washington State? No truth to it.
Yeah, there's not many people reporting this at all. There's been some smoke and heat to it from one particular corner of the internet, and it's not happening. It's not, because if it was going to happen, they could have just done it all at once. There's no reason to slow play Oregon State and Washington State in this thing if you could just have them and everything was going to be fine. Oregon State and Washington State are not coming. They're not even focused on coming to the Big 12. They're focused on winning whatever they can from the Pac-12 money-wise, and then figuring out what they're going to do eventually, probably with the Mountain West, because that is where it's headed. That's going to be the best shot for them in the short term and the long term, and figuring out whatever they're going to do and rename it the Pac-12. But anything you hear about Oregon State and Washington State definitely coming to the Big 12, that there's definitely anything, is a lie. Yeah, it is a straight up and down lie.
No truth to it is the way that it was put. And Craig, I sent you guys that last night when I got the response. So there is that as far as those two schools in the Big 12.
Yeah, and I believe where that's coming from, and I believe that even before seeing that. I read a little bit on, I guess, the argument, and I don't know, I think the way that I guess, story is being positioned, there's a lot of like, well, if and hopefully and could and would, and then it's being taken though as like it's happening, and that doesn't appear to be the case in any way whatsoever, not even a shred of a little bit. It's more of, well, if this and this and this happens and this could happen and that could lead to them, and that's what it is, and it's not actually anything from like real things occurring, if that makes sense, is the best way, I guess, to explain how I read it and unpacked it. And realignment's a fun topic. It's an interesting topic, and it gets a lot of attention. And I think sometimes attention can be a bad thing for some people, or it's the entire driving force. And I think in this case, it's really, especially for Oregon State fans, I hate it for them because I think a lot of hopes are getting up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Washington State fans, same thing, because I don't think there's any merit to it. And I understand the argument. One of the guys involved DM'd me to tell me about the documents that he read and all that stuff. And I understand the point, but I think he himself would say, oh, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that, if this were to happen and this were to happen. So the fact that it's being taken as a report is totally BS. There's not a report that's happening. It's more or less, hey, if somehow those two get all of this money, which is not a guarantee by any means and is not something that is an automatic by any means. First of all, they're trying to figure out their own situation. Like, that's the first things first. And once you figure out your situation in court here in the next few weeks and you figure out what are you actually in control of as far as the money, the payouts, the network, and all that kind of stuff, then there will be a little bit of a clearer picture. But that's basically banking on schools getting like $100+ million from the playoff, which is just assuming that would be the case. And I understand, reading it a certain type of way, but there's absolutely nothing of actual guarantee or substance that that's going to be the case. And so this is something that would be way down the line, if anything, but right now doesn't have anything to it. And if you actually listen to the argument, there will even be a lot of, well, I'm not saying this is happening, but it could, and it's being taken, though, and being positioned it's being positioned as something that is happening to get eyeballs.
Well, sorry. I just saw this tweet. This is, and again, I'm going to read it. This is from a fan, I guess, Oregon State fan. Sources telling me that Oregon is driving Fox to throw money at the Big 12 to add Oregon State No word on Wazoo because the OU leadership feels that state lawmakers could force them to subsidize Oregon State, meaning the $30 million they're getting becomes $20 million. A Big 12 a Big 12 administrator high up the food chain responded to me yesterday. There is no truth to it. So I'll go, and with the person who I heard from, I will carry that as 100% validity.
Well, and even that example already had holes shot through it if you read the replies to it. That is not the case in the government structure, and that is not the situation as it currently stands. So, yeah, that's an example of, wishful thinking, I think, in a way. And, I don't want to be big S talk or anything here. I don't want people to get their hopes up when I don't think there's really any substance to that. I think that, again, it's carefully positioning certain parts of in a 1 in 1 million chance that could happen, but based on everything that we know, and I don't think that we've really tried to fool people or, do any of that. There's nothing to that. And, could there be anything else? Sure. But I don't want people to get their hopes up and think that there's something imminent or that there's something in the works, because to the best of our knowledge, that's not the case. And this is getting, to be a story that's not really the story that it's being positioned as. No, I guess is the best way that I could say it.
Yeah, right, and we're trying to do this at the highest acme of professionalism here, but it is, people in the realignment space like to chase clicks and page views. We prefer, I'll just say, to earn them, and by doing the work the right way. And so don't believe everything you hear. We've told you just before, and again, this is sourced information and not speculation. So that's where you need to kind of rely on getting your information when it comes down to the realignment stuff. And Oregon State and Washington State, let me just tell you, so it is, Matt Brown wrote today how interesting it was what is going on in Oregon about realignment and how they're approaching it, because it's a little bit different. But at the end of the day, the Pac-12 contract is up. So that argument they're going to be able to say, this contract is up. Now, if we can, rely on some of this future money, that some of the things that were still going to be built, but that also means that the rest of the group has to agree to give it to them.
Right.
So not just the rest of the Pac-12 teams, the rest of the teams in the country have to agree to let that money go to them, which they have 2 years where they can get the waiver. But don't think that if the other teams don't want them to get that money, that the rest of the 200 teams in the country are just going to let them have it.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more complicated than just they're going to win against these other 10 schools because they broke up the conference. Well, no, it's not that simple.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know about how the money part works exactly. I know that there's an argument to be made that they could be in store for that money if everything falls their way. It's not a layup. It's not even a slam dunk, or it's not a slam dunk. It's not even a layup, but there is that possibility. And so the idea being that you have $200 million and how attractive that would be. But there are a lot of questions about that. For example, okay, let's say they get to operate as a 2-team conference. The Pac-12 is not an automatic qualifier. So who's, you get there's the 6 automatic, but that's not the Pac-12 automatically gets that.
It's the top 6 highest ranked, so they would still have to be good.
Right, and so who are they playing?
Yeah.
Who are they playing in conference? Who is on their schedule after this year that they're playing, besides each other?
Themselves, yeah.
Besides each other. And so, yeah, sure, if that all happens and then everybody around the country agrees to give Oregon State, with their one conference win or whatever is put together, which would be, shades of the Mountain West or whatever, and if everybody agrees that that's the same thing as what we're operating under right now, and that was automatic, then sure, but that's not exactly what it is. And nobody knows beyond right now what that is going to look like or where they're going to be playing. And so, I'm trying to be as fair as possible. I see the idea, but I don't think there's much of substance to it. I think, again, it's a lot of hopefulness, and, there's a lot of questions about how all the playoff is going to work and all of that. But, yeah, they don't automatically, it's not Oregon State beat Washington State, so they automatically get that. And it's a lot more complicated as far as the playoff payouts and how all of that works. And so that's not really my area of expertise. But I think I know enough to know that, yeah, it's not just a guarantee that they're going to have $100+ million between the two of them and everything that comes with that. And everybody else is just going to play along with it and not get together and band together and say, are we really going to let them just, have a 2-team conference for a couple years and just give them a playoff spot? Like, that's the part that's questionable to me, is how all that would work. And I think that's part of what's being figured out. But as far as I'm concerned, to the best of my knowledge right now, Oregon State and Washington State are trying to figure out this lawsuit, and then you can kind of operate and move from there. But like any idea, like just to be clear, any idea that some Big 12 move is imminent is not true.
All right,
let's say that is not true.
Put the graphic up one more time, Garrett. Just one more time. So I asked, this is what we did for 2+ years when there were thoughts, reports, speculation, whatever, and a lot of times about 50% of them, again, were thrown up against the wall just if they stuck at some point later on down the road. 90% of them never did. Are there any imminent or future plans for the Big 12 to expand involving Oregon State or Washington State? No truth to it. Sit from somebody that is, I've never gotten bad information from, ever. And so there we are with that.
Yeah, and I hate that. I would love for Oregon State and Washington State. I think we've all said multiple times we'd love for them to be in the conference, but I don't want to get people's hopes up, and I'm very curious to see how they land, where they land, and what that looks like. And I understand, like I said, that there's an idea of, like, if a bunch of things fall like the perfect way, then sure, you'd be really rich and be, I guess, a bit more attractive. But that still doesn't guarantee that the Big 12 would be the conference to walk up and be like, hey, you want to go out now? Because that part of it is just, I think, well, they have to do it is the argument. That's the argument. Like, so why is this going to, well, because they'd have to. But why? Well, because they'd have to, because all this money, it's like, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to do a damn thing. And so, no, that's not a good argument for why it would have to happen. But, I wish that there, nobody would love more for us than us to have that be real and be chasing down, like, let's get Oregon State on the phone and let's get Washington State on the phone and let's talk about it and how that would look and all of that. But we're not going to do that because from our point of view, that's just, there's nothing to that.
All right, let's break, please.